Urban Crag Climbing Center is a rock gym located in Dayton, Ohio, with 8,000 feet of textured and sculpted vertical terrain ranging from 28 to 56 feet. For more info, go to urbancrag.com or call 937-224-CRAG. So, you wrote a piece for Dayton Most Metro this week telling people who are thinking about possibly voting for a third party in tomorrow's election that that's shuttlecocky or something to that effect. Am I correct? Please tell me your reasons, because we've been struggling. Audra had mentioned, I'll just let the cat out of the bag. She's like, I pulled the lever for Obama, but I felt kind of sick when I did it. But and knowing some of the things like the NDAA that he's passed, and
right.
Smoking 16-year-old boys with drones from the skies.
Yeah.
That whole thing, which a lot of Americans don't seem to be aware of,
Yeah.
but which creates a sense in people who do know about it, like, how can I, as a moral person, look at myself in the mirror tomorrow morning knowing that I voted for someone who smoked 16-year-old boys from the skies on secret death lists and passes what is really, could be argued as the death of habeas corpus. So please tell me why we should vote for, there are reasons certainly to vote for Obama versus Romney, but why shouldn't someone with a conscience who says, I do not want to support this machine ever again, or put any of my effort, why should they give up on that in hopefully building something bigger and go with the two-party duopoly?
Well, I guess my argument was really that the way people frame it is, I can't vote for the lesser of two evils in good conscience.
Mm-hmm.
And I just basically pointed out that that's sort of illogical. If you know that there is a lesser of two evils, and you actually suggest that there is, then to say I can't vote for the lesser of two evils is saying, however, I will vote for the greater of two evils. Because that's basically what we're saying, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think most folks on the left say, yes, Obama's not as bad as Romney. We don't think the world would look the same if, Romney were president. But because of Obama's failings, we just can't in good conscience vote for him. And so for me, it's like, if you just say, I can't vote for him, then don't vote for him. But if you say that the reason you can't vote for him is because he's the lesser of two evils, then I think that that's problematic, because he is the lesser. If you just look at all of the things that the Ryan-Romney budget will do to folks in this country, I'm just sort of agreeing with people like Chomsky and Cornel West,
mm-hmm.
right? These are not folks that are Obama apologists or supporters,
not
right?
They,
they could. Chomsky even came out in support of Stein, but both of them said, if you live in a swing state, vote for Obama. So basically, who am I to argue with Chomsky? Who am I to argue with these folks have been around for a long time. I think they're both moral people.
mm-hmm.
And sometimes I think, we do this all the time on the left, like, I'm more radical than you, and I'm more committed than you, and and it just sometimes really gets on my nerves that we get on our high horse and we're not actually being pragmatic.
I can see that, but it still goes back to that that image, knowing, and just what I spoke of earlier,
Right.
And we are dealing with, machine heavy or machine light in the Republicans versus the Democrats. But those of us who studied who supplies them with their campaign dollars know that people like Goldman Sachs give freely to each side. And we want to break, for the case of like a true democracy, the stranglehold that the two-party system has in the U.S. They exclude third parties. As much as I disagree with a lot of libertarians, I think it's totally wrong, totally undemocratic, and a spit in the face of every U.S. veteran that third parties are not giving, that we don't have an equal party system in the U.S.
Oh,
Because we're
I totally agree with that. But I don't think, and there was just actually a good piece in these times where he talked about structurally, what we really need to do is get more folks at the local and state level, right?
I
Because
agree.
even if you got by some miracle were able to elect a third party candidate, they would have no support, none at all.
Hmm.
Not in the system that we have now. So my
Sure.
big question is, when this was coming up in 2000, right? Vote your conscience, don't vote for the lesser of two evils. I mean, it's the same argument. We continue to have this argument,
Yeah.
right? Why didn't we see a huge wave of local Green Party candidates if that was really what folks wanted to do? I mean, we have some, but if we're saying we really want to make these changes, then why aren't we making them? Why do we only really talk about this when it comes to the presidential election?
Well, that's a really good point because there's a lot of Baptist church secretaries who are quite willing to run for school boards in Texas and
Right.
all over the country and have no problem jumping in the political arena. And that's kind of one of the, I guess, quote unquote critiques we had of the Occupy movement was you got no matter I mean if the system is corrupt, you've got to get in there and give alternatives to it because it's not going away anytime soon.
Right.
They're not
Right.
going to be like, oh, okay, well, we're not going to be in power anymore because you guys said. No,
Right.
you have to like actually force
And
them out of power with other people.
right. Well, and I still think, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, I don't think the role of Occupy is to run for political
I
office.
agree with that,
I
but I
do
would,
think that there's a role
like to see
for
some people though.
supporting radical folks.
Sure,
But
it
but
could
I
be like
but I mean, I still think the movement for Occupy is from the outside, putting that pressure on. But there are plenty of people that have been talking about alternative parties. I mean, Move On's been around for a long time now.
hmm
Like, why is there no traction? To me, it's like, and, that's why I always say, if somebody says something about party stuff, let's do this party stuff. I'm like, okay, get involved with Move On. Like all these other groups that have been, suggesting the same thing for a long time. That's where we need to build, so that if by some miracle we did have a viable third party candidate, there'd be an infrastructure for them. You
So
know,
basically, it's not going to happen until the infrastructure happens with third-party candidates running for school board offices, city commission offices,
right,
not just one.
right. State
Um,
legislatures,
yeah, I mean, yeah.
Congress people. I mean,
How do you
but
get
but
that to
we only
happen?
have these discussions for presidents. When it
Uh-huh.
comes to the presidential election, like it drives me crazy.
How do
I,
you get that
you know,
on the left? That many people willing to devote to the time to run for school board, to run
right,
for to get on the zoning appeals board, or some
right,
of the unsexier things that really affect people's lives.
right.
Do you think we're going to see that propulsion maybe from this election, or will a
I'm
Romney
hoping we
win
will.
propel that?
I mean, I'm hoping we will. I think, like Maria Holt has suggested that she's going to get involved, and I think that's fabulous because she's got a ton of ideas. She's articulate, she's smart, which is exactly what we need, and she has, I think, a real conscience, right?
Yeah,
Which
and
is
empathy towards
also what
people.
we need.
Yes, sure.
Yes. So I'm really, I mean, I'm hoping that maybe we will, but I don't know. It kind of also depends on what this election looks like. I think one of the reasons that we didn't see much happen in the last 12 years is because people were so demoralized after 2000.
Hmm.
So they were running around kicking themselves for voting for Nader, whether or not they actually thought that that had an impact on the election or not. They still were kicking themselves. So then I think that's, sort of impacted the momentum, right? So people were
Hmm.
like, okay, I'm out of politics entirely. Forget it. This is. horrible.
Well, the politics is in. They do seem to come in waves of sorts. There'll be a huge boost in participation in such and such a movement. A year later, you see them kind of going down a little bit and then up a
Yeah.
little bit. I think people don't realize sometimes that maybe our natural human cycles are kind of like we get really excited and then, I take a chill from this before I go crazy.
Yeah. Well, and some, one of the things I think too is that we put too much stock in elections, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, elections are not all that democracy is, right? So, it isn't just good enough to go down and stand in line, cast your vote, or mail it in, or whatever, and then go, "Phew, I'm done." Boy, was that tough. We have to now and go back and watch Breaking Bad.
Mm-hmm.
But um, we have to work at democracy all the time, and I think that's one of the big problems. If we actually, after 2008, had as a mobilized left put more pressure on Obama, then maybe things would have looked different. Maybe if he actually thought that we would, push him to the left, like the Tea Party did, right?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe if he thought that that was the case, that he had some sort of backing, because this, Sherrod Brown's been doing the same thing, man. Like he's looking for those undecided voters, and I'm like, the problem is, while you guys are after those undecided voters, your base is going, screw you, you
Mm-hmm.
know, like see you later. What happened to hope and change? Like, what are you doing? So I mean, we think it's just like our sports teams. Yay, we won. Job
Mm-hmm.
over.
Time to go home. Yeah, and that's really just kind of when it started.
Yeah, yeah.
All right. Well, what's your prediction for tomorrow?
Oh Lord. Um, phew. I don't know. I mean, I guess Nate Silver. I'd like to go along with Nate Silver since he says it's the likelihood of Obama winning is pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. It's pretty close. I don't want it to be one of those cliffhangers either. That was no fun.
Yeah, and I haven't seen any attention in the media on how the East Coast storm is going to affect. 'Cause I'm sure a lot of polling places are shut down for damages. How do they get all this stuff together in a week? No one's mentioning it. We've got
There were
Eusted.
robocalls.
What's
There were
that?
robocalls in Massachusetts saying, "Don't go to the polls on Tuesday. They've delayed it for a day."
Sure.
I'm like, okay, if voting doesn't make a difference, really, if there's no real difference between either party, then why does one party go out of its way to keep people from voting? I mean,
Yeah.
I'm like, really?
Sure. Could we have a Gore Bush, um, reenactment, if you will? If
Yeah.
we've got Eusted. He's coming through with
Oh yeah.
unsigned software on thing. We've got Tag Romney. He's got money in Ohio election machines. We've got all
Yeah.
these. Just the atmosphere is totally nutty with all these
And I
interest
mean,
groups running
if the
interest
candidates.
ads.
Oh yeah, it's just scary.
Yeah.
So like if they were really that similar,
Hmm.
why would somebody be working so hard to make sure that one of them got elected? I mean, and it's been
That's
that
a good
way. It's
point.
always the Republicans that are pulling the dirty tricks.
Hmm.
So I don't know. I mean, I I keep thinking, of course, you don't know that this is the case, but I wonder what would have happened if we would have had Gore for president. I don't think Iraq. I think we would have made some headway on climate change.
Hmm.
Other things I'm not so sure about, but those are two pretty big things. And I mean, the world just would have looked like a different place. I think we would have been moving in a different direction. And to me, that's the scariest thing. Like, if these Republicans think they have some sort of mandate to, go along with their imperial agenda and, go ahead and starve the beast, right, in the
Hmm.
bathtub, I, I don't know. I mean, how bad does it have to get for change? Is what the other argument, right? Oh, it won't
Sure.
get.
We
We won't
asked.
have any change until it gets really bad. And I'm like, seriously, you don't think it's pretty bad already?
Well, yeah, we asked that question kind of in regard to uh, climate change last week, and the new show we've got called "This American Bacon," which we posed the question: will Americans have to become feral mud people before they actually believe in, climate change?
Yeah.
And we think that that's what I think that's what it'll eventually will come to. Like there'll have to be like some kind of massive storm that just blows everything away, and we're living in some sort of Mad Max type environment for people to say, "Hey, maybe these people was right about climate change, and Rush Limbaugh wasn't right."
Yeah.
But unfortunately, we don't want it to get that far,
Yeah.
because we all suffer.
Well, and I mean that's also a big difference between Romney and Obama. If you needed, another reason, if you want one reason, right? I mean, there are a few of them definitely, and I think at
Sure.
least Obama acknowledges that climate change exists and has, been trying to work within a broken system to do something about it,
Yeah.
right?
And
You know,
apparently, also, Republicans. Another observation I've got is that Republicans really seem to think that being on welfare is like the greatest thing is like the biggest never-ending party in the world, where you just get.
well, they ought to know.
Well, I guess so.
I
Yeah,
mean, the politicians at least, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
I've seen some.
Woo! I love this corporate welfare.
Yeah, I've seen
Yeah.
some like memes today. They're talking about how people act like animals when provided with a steady food supply, and they're always going back to this assumption that people don't earn, or
Oh
people
yeah.
don't want to work.
Sure.
Yeah, when that's pretty much against basic human nature, is
Yeah.
people want to be active and
Productive. Yeah.
productive and have a place and take care of them and theirs. That's
Yeah.
about it. So, well, anyway, we'll
Well,
leave
it's that, yeah. I mean, they've been doing that for 40 years now. The whole welfare. Let's pit everybody against each other, and now they're doing it with public sector workers. They're the new welfare queens,
Yeah, and
right?
we've got drug testing of welfare recipients.
And
Which
unemployment even. I mean, it's like pretty much they've narrowed the deserving folks in this country to the 1%, which I think is really fascinating.
yeah,
Yeah, you don't have to get drug tested because you're all right.
sure. Why?
Your government benefits are fine.
Yeah, we've got like transvaginal probes. So I
Oh,
mean, we ought to have at least, on the very least, anal probes for politicians. I mean, it's only
yeah.
fair.
Oh, I think we should drug test all politicians for
Yeah.
sure.
Well, I'm kind of on the I like that idea, but at the same time, I think we need to stop worrying about what's inside of people's pee
Yeah. No,
and
it's really. I
judge
mean,
them by
it's
their
really
real
ridiculous.
actions.
I ask people. I ask students. Like, so we'll talk about drug testing welfare recipients. And they're like, yeah, people that get government benefits should all be tested. And I said, everybody? And they're like, yeah. And I'm like, well, then that means people on Social Security, and that means people that get student loans, and that means people that get a mortgage credit, and that means, I mean, on and on and on. And they're like, oh, oh, I
Right?
mean,
Yeah.
it,
Oh.
yeah. Oh, and maybe not then. Maybe, and when you, oh, yeah. But I mean, it keeps us divided into these ever smaller groups of deserving, and that's what
Sure.
they want. They don't want us to be together and solid, right? Because then we would be formidable.
Sure. That's our natural state, is to be together and united.
Exactly. But God forbid,
Sure.
because then they might actually make some changes around here.
Yeah, because when you think about, I think I made a post the other day about kind of the war racket being a game of partly hairless monkeys dressing up in funny outfits to go shoot bullets at the other mostly hairless monkeys, built
Right.
upon patriotism of each side has, in order
Right.
to um, justify this game of killing each other to enrich other mostly hairless monkeys who have designed the whole game for them to participate in.
Oh yeah.
And yeah, so
Well, making sure that they are not the ones actually doing any of that. They're just coordinating it.
I would probably be much more participatory in our democracy if our leaders are actually the ones leading the charge up the hill with an M16 machine gun,
Yeah.
because that's a real leader.
Yeah. Yeah, you guys go ahead. Well, I just think it would be great to just, put the heads of state on a field somewhere and say, okay, have at it. And
Sure,
nobody else was involved.
sure. I
Then
mean, we
we
should
probably
be.
have fewer wars, right?
Yeah, and I think kind of like the extreme fighting that we've got going on
Yeah.
that's so popular would be a great way to switch the political arena over into, you want to fight? Well, you guys fight. I'm not going to fight
Exactly.
against some guy I've never known, my whole life, who I ain't got any beef with. It's obviously you guys have the beef. So, fight down. We can, like, I'll get a bag of popcorn, watch, who's going to
Yeah.
win. And then we can forget all this ridiculousness that we're a different kind of monkey than the other kind of monkey.
Oh yeah.
And
Yeah.
but not that I don't enjoy being a monkey. I think it's a glorious, um, creature to be. If Homo sapien, I'm all about it. I enjoy this lifetime, but I realize, for what it is, and we're all the same creatures across the earth who want the same things. And these
Definitely.
little human constructs that we make up to try to convince ourselves that we're different are just that,
Right.
human constructs, not
Well,
ones
and
of
that's, I mean,
reality.
that's the whole point with I think climate change too. Like for the longest time, we had convinced ourselves, that we could somehow beat nature, and I think folks still want to think that, that there's somehow, especially some of the Bible verses about dominion and all that crap,
Mm-hmm.
but we're just like all the other animals. We have better tools, but we're just like all the other animals. Like whatever happens in nature affects us. That's
Sure.
it. The end.
Mm-hmm.
And we've got to figure that one out. And I think unfortunately sometimes disasters like Sandy, I think finally, climate change is all over the place. Even Chris Christie and Bloomberg said, "Oh yeah, Cuomo,
Well, how are they
shit,
going to deny it in front?
climate change."
Yeah, when their cities are, you know, matchstick boxes that are have been, they look like, you know, card games turned into buildings, you know,
Yeah,
and
Matchbox cars,
yeah,
yeah, floating
everywhere.
over,
And
yeah.
yeah, who among those guys is going to say now, like, there ain't no problem around here? I think the constituency would probably storm City Hall and pull them
Although
out.
I think right after that, wasn't there somebody who said Obama did it, to get
Oh yeah,
points
I'm
or
sure
something?
there's Obama did
I'm like,
it. God did it to punish the gays.
Obama did it to swing the election. I'm like, okay, really? These
Yeah,
are the folks that are voting, right? So
sure.
the important thing is for us to get out and
I
vote.
agree with you. I agree with you because yeah, if you don't realize it's from millions and millions and millions, hundreds of millions of people participating in industrialization and
Right,
the mass gases. You can't see it. I mean, if you can't see that when you drive around, like, oh my God, every single person here is, just pumping out gasoline emissions
right,
to go to the store.
right,
Thousands, millions of them every single day. And the mass of all of that, and the factories and the houses and all that modernity brings,
right,
it's just an enormous amount of gases. And scientists have said, yeah, that's, the totality of all that is what's causing that.
right.
There is no doubt in science.
No,
Uh,
not in science,
not
but
in
in
not well. I mean, not in. There's always doubt in science. You want to disprove someone's science to advance science, but there's no
right.
doubt in the climate change science. There's
Well,
one or
no,
two
even
people.
that even that dude from, was it Berkeley, who they actually hired, I think the oil companies hired him to talk about how climate change wasn't a bad deal.
Yeah,
I mean, because he was a climate change denier. And then he ran the numbers and he said, actually, it's worse than they said. So he suddenly was a believer.
hmm
He's like, holy crap. And of course, they weren't happy because they'd spent all this money for this study and, hadn't turned out the way they wanted. But
but
yeah, but
data
the,
and
the
facts
reality
don't
is
always
the
turn out
reality.
the way we want them. They don't always give us answers that make us feel good all over,
Right.
and
Yeah.
that's life.
Yeah, but I mean, it's like somebody said, well, there are folks are afraid of change, and I'm like, yeah, but we have an option here, right? We can either change with things and make it so that it's not so drastic eventually,
hmm
or we're going to change when, like you said, when it's Mad Max, right?
Yeah,
We're not going to have a
if
choice. I mean,
anyone's
either
left.
way, things are changing. So we have a choice of either participating in the change and adapting and trying to save some of this climate, this planet, or just going, eh. I mean,
Do you
that's
think
that's our
Americans really will, or will they continue to be um, in overall unhealthy, apathetic, and keep eating the cheese doodles and driving to the mall.
I really think we're going to change. I have to think that, or I just go live in the country somewhere by myself, and
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I really think we have to. I think we have to change, and I think folks are waking up to that. I mean, we couldn't talk about capitalism just a little while ago, and now a lot of people are talking about the evils of capitalism. So now we're talking about climate change,
And the
and
rapacious nature of it becoming it needs more and more and more and more and more and more and
yeah,
more. It's something that's come
yeah,
to the conversation this year that you still don't see in the conversation that anybody in the mainstream mention is the term
everywhere.
infinite growth paradigm, which is basically kind of like the
Capitalism.
sure, that's a good way to
Yeah,
put it, but in that you have to always make more than you made before, and then
right,
eventually, like a snowball going down a hill, it gets so big that it wipes everything out.
right.
Yeah. So anyway,
Well, I mean, that's why. But there are folks that are working on this. We have transition economies, like there are transition towns.
hmm
There are, folks talking about slow growth. I mean, so there are people talking about it. We don't hear about it a lot because I don't think there's been much room for that discussion. But I think we'll see more room for it
super.
soon. And I think what we have to do is whoever is elected, we just have to make sure that we put the screws to them, and don't just go, okay, check, I voted, yay,
See you in
we're all
four
good now.
years.
Yep, I'm good for 4 more years, But I mean, that we have to just make sure that we put pressure on folks.
All right. Well, I'm going to vote tomorrow. I didn't succumb to the pressure to vote early
Me either.
because
I'm a
I'm a
Tuesday voter.
yeah I'm a diehard blue dog procrastinator. So
I just like it. I mean, I like the tradition, and
yeah, I go
so
to the
yeah,
VFW hall and they got the whole thing. But whatever you want to do, that's all good with me.
yeah.
So hey, you have a great day. Good luck
Thanks,
voting,
Aaron. You too.
and
Say hi to Audra for me.
I certainly shall. And in the meantime, we're out of here. Take
All
care.
right.
Thank you very much.
All right. See ya.
Bye bye.
Where have you been?
I was shopping.
You've been out with Ruben, haven't you?
It's all over your face.